Alright, so we are going to continue sculpting our bust, paying special attention to the anatomy of the skull. Alright, so I've got several images of skull reference that I'm going to be looking at. I'm fortunate enough to have two monitors, so I can put some of this stuff on the second monitor. But even if you don't, you should have some of this stuff open and maybe just under ZBrush that you can refer to quite often. Alright. So, looking at the shape of the skull, there are a lot of bony areas that we want to pay attention to. Okay, so the way, specifically the, the cheekbone here, the zygomatic arch. All right, the brow area. Okay, we want to pay special attention to the temporal area right here, how this cuts in. All right, this is a relatively flat spot on the skull right here. It kind of goes up and around. All right, but paying attention to the profile, how the brow comes out, comes back in again, and then the cheekbone comes out. All right, looking at the skull from the top. All right, we're getting this egg shape with the fattest part of the egg being right behind the ears. All right, so the ears would be here. Okay. So the fattest part of the egg is across right behind the ears there. All right. So it's stuff like this that we need to pay attention to when we're looking at skull anatomy. And I've got all kinds of skull anatomy that I've sent to you in the skull reference base mesh folder. All right. It also helps to start to learn the names of some of this stuff, the maxilla. All right, the mandible, which is the entire jaw, just a separate piece of bone. All right, we'll talk about the occipital bone here, the parietal, the frontal bone. All right, again, looking at how right here we dip in as we come down and where we meet the nasal bone. These are important features that we need to get in to our sculpture. All right. So again, I've got all this skull reference that I'm going to be referring to that I've got on my desktop. Again, looking at the top of the skull here, the fattest part of the egg is behind the ears. All right. Photo reference, I've got drawing reference here. Again, just noticing where the bony parts of the head are, how the cheekbone is a very prominent feature. Okay, the brows again. So pay attention to these areas. All right. Notice too on the side view here how we have this rounded sort of mound. Okay, where our teeth are. So when our lips are on top of that, it's important to realize that it's not a flat surface. There's a lot going on underneath the lips. Okay. There's a lot of mass, bone structure underneath there. So we need to keep that in mind as we're working around the head and rolling around and looking at it, that we're keeping these forms, all right? So you really need to refer to your anatomy, reference while you're doing this. And another great tool to use is going to be a mirror, all right? If you can get a small mirror to set next to you while you work, you'll probably be more successful in sculpting the details. Okay. Another thing too, I've got some reference of not just the skull, but what's going on with the muscles of the neck and shoulders. Okay. So, we can't forget to do that. A lot of people fixate on just doing the face, but we need to get the anatomy of the neck and shoulders right as well. All right. Making sure that we get the traps as they run behind the neck. Okay, they run behind the neck to the base of the skull. All right, the sternal muscle attaches just behind the ear, just behind and below the ear here. All right, this is the ear canal, so that you know that the ear is right in here. Okay, and the sternal muscle comes down and attaches to the front right here. All right, see how it Y's off. All right, these are important things to note. All right, so let's go ahead and bring our model back in. And let me just move this over. All right, so we've got ZBrush open. Again, we hit comma to hide the light box and go up to Document, New Document. All right, Load Tool, and I'm going to bring in my model. Let's see where I have it here. Let's see, not sure where I have it. Here we go. All right, again, when we bring it in, you notice it doesn't pop into the screen, but we do see it in our big tab right here. So I'm going to click and drag. And again, hit Edit. And I'm going to go ahead and change my material to the basic material 2. And we should still have our image planes in there. And remember, if I hit transparency, all right, and I still have my preferences. Oops, let me just move this over so you can see it. Preferences, draw, and my front opacity at 0.83 and my back opacity at 0. All right. So I can continue sculpting and shaping this. Now I'm going to do a lot of this just by looking at the image planes and then turning my transparency off. And I might even hit my solo button, okay? And just start trying to get some of those basic shapes in as I look at the reference I have in front of me. So I'm going to use a bigger brush and I'm going to use my Move Topological. Now you can use your regular Move brush if you want. And I'm going to just start pulling some of this in, making sure that the back of the head here is that fat egg shape. Okay, and you'll notice that as I work, it's mostly just sort of nudging things very gently. I'm still working at the low subdivision level. I haven't had a reason yet to up-res. Okay. Now I've also got the pictures that I'm using for the reference off to the side. And I'm making sure that I refer to those, okay? And again, I'm referring to anatomy reference that I have in front of me. Okay. Not forgetting the neck, okay? So as I move around here, I'm going to bring back my image planes and go back to transparency and see where we're at, okay? I'm a little wide on the side of the head here. I'm just going to pull some of this in. Now I don't have to do all of this right in front of the image planes, right? I can, just let me get this, I can just pull it off to the side here. Okay, and continue working. I'm also going to make sure that I get the ear in place. And we have some edge loops there. I turn my poly frame on. And if I get in a little closer here, I can start to move some of those edge loops up and get them into place. All right, when we do the ear next week, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'm not going to be sort of glued to the placement of the image on my reference here. All right, the image could be slightly turned, the head could be turned slightly. That would throw the placement of the ear off. So I'm just kind of put a general placement, and I'll come back to that. We'll do that next week. But I can see that most of this is lining up fairly well. All right. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and go to my Geometry tab and hit the Divide button. Okay. Now you can see when we do that, I'll turn my poly frame off and my transparency, that we've got now 2 subdivision levels. And if I slide down, you'll see I've got 1,000 polygons, 1,009. As I step up, I have 4,001. Okay. So we're looking okay here. I'm going to continue to just use my Move brush, using my Shift. Now, if your model pops up close like that, you can hit F to frame it. Okay. So again, I'm just looking at the, I'm going to turn my transparency on and look at it from the side here. using Shift to snap it. Turn my polyframe on again. Okay. And I can see that it's really close. It's a little bit off here on the back. No big deal. Okay. I've got the nose lining up fairly well. I've got some a little bit on the top here I'm going to pull out. I'm still using my move brush. Okay, I'm still shaping it. All right. Okay, so this is starting to feel pretty good. Again, I'm going to go ahead and let me see it from the front. Holding Shift to snap it. Okay. Now, as you work, you may find that it fits well on one side of the image, but maybe not so well on the other. All right. This is going to be pretty common. Nobody's face is symmetrical, and sometimes the head is turned slightly, so you don't actually get, symmetry on the face. So if that happens, you just have to favor one side of the face. Okay. It may be off on one side, but if it's working well on the other, then you should be in good shape. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to pull back a bit. I'm going to turn my polyframe off and my transparency off. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hide my image planes, and I'm going to divide it one more time. All right. So now you can see the model gets a lot smoother. At this point, I can come in with my clay tubes. Clay tubes, you can use your clay tubes. You can use your standard brush. They all basically do the same thing. I'm partial to clay tubes, but I want you to experiment and find what you like. All right. And at this point, I can come in here and I can start building up some of the bony areas. All right, starting with the brow. All right, and I like to be a little bit fast and loose with it at this stage. I'm still working rough. I'm still building up the big areas. Now I'm being, I just use my clay tubes brush with the default, but I can up the intensity on that. Of course, I can change the draw size as needed. All right. There isn't much cause to adjust the focal shift, so you can play with that if you want, but the default is fine. I'm on Z-Add, and I'm just building up the bony areas of the skull. All right, the jawline, the jawbone. Now, even though the picture, it's not, there isn't a sharp jawline there is a bone there that we need to be aware of. Okay, we can put the bony areas in, and then come back in and flesh it out a bit more. All right. So again, I just play it a little bit fast and loose at this point with some of the bony areas. I'm going to smooth that down. Now remember, when you use your smooth brush, if I hold down Shift, you'll notice that the smooth brush becomes active and the Z intensity defaults to 100. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button, slide the intensity back down, say to about there, and just smooth this out lightly. Okay, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger by holding down the space bar. Okay, and I'm just going to lightly smooth some of this out. Now don't forget that as well with the clay tubes, I can build up form, all right, by just laying it down like that and then smoothing it out. But I can also take away by holding down Alt. And let me make my draw size a little smaller and my intensity a little bit lower. If I hold down Alt, I can start to dig away as well. Okay? So if I wanted to dig around the jawline a bit, all right, and again, just smooth that out. Let me up this a bit. Okay, in the next video, we're going to come back and we are going to continue shaping and start modeling, sculpting the nose.